So good evening, everyone. My name is Gina Kessler-Lee, and I am one of the librarians here at St. Mary's. And we've started this speedrunning research series of workshops on Tuesday evenings this semester, every other week, just trying out a few topics and seeing what interests folks. So you can head on over. Later I will put in the chat a link to our YouTube channel where you can catch our recordings of um, our workshops on getting to full text and then also on some AI tools for research. And tonight, of course, is cheat codes for citing. So, what are some of our librarians' favorite tips and tricks for citing? And we'll go over sort of the different kinds of citation styles and why they even exist, why we cite things in the first place, and why they are so particular about formatting. And then we'll dive into what are the differences between some of the most common styles and then how you might go about citing different kinds of sources from a scholarly journal article to a TikTok video. And then I'll point you to some resources the library makes available to help you with citing, as well as resources that are free out in the world that can also help with citing or some citing tools that come with some of our databases. So if you have any questions, or if I go too fast over something, feel free to throw them in the chat. I might need to save them to the end. Since this is speed running research, we're going to just run through this super fast. We got a lot to go through in less than 30 minutes. And just in case you have to hop off early, I'm going to throw some links in the chat. And for those of you watching on YouTube, these will be in the sort of show notes below or the what is it called? The description. Let's see. Okay, so in the chat, I put slides that you can refer, that I'll be going through that you can refer back to after this. I've got a feedback survey. We really look at those responses, and that will help us improve these sessions. We don't have topic set after tonight. So what you put in there is suggested topics for future workshops we will definitely take seriously as we plan out the next few of these. I also have a link to our library citation style guide, sort of what I call our cheat sheets to citing and all the different styles that are common here at St. Mary's. Also, we're going to be talking about an app called Zotero that can be amazing for helping you cite correctly and also keep track of your research. So we'll go through that in a little bit. And then I also have a link to where you can either send a librarian a chat or make an appointment or send us an email so that we can help answer all your citing questions after tonight. So let's get to it. All right. So first of all, why do we even cite, right? Why do professors make you go through this process of putting together these huge, very particular lists of resources? So one reason is just to make sure we're not plagiarizing and to give credit to those whose ideas we're using. So it's very common in academia for you to be building off of the knowledge created by others, and so you want to give credit to the folks whose ideas came before you. And then, of course, it adds to our authority on our topic. So if people see that we have done our research and we've based our ideas on sources that they know are credible, then it makes us look more credible. It also helps our readers find the research we use. So if we all use the same style, then it allows people to quickly look at one of these citations, for example, and see, okay, is this a book? Is it a website? Is it an article? Where did it come from? Who wrote it? And how can I find it? It gives them all the details. Because links can break. I read a study about broken links in Supreme Court cases, and they often link to information that's on the web, and like almost half of those links, I believe, end up getting broken over time, right? Things come down off the web or move. And so it's important to provide all the information instead of just a link to something you used, but provide the details about who wrote it and how you got to it. So, why can't we all just use the same citation style? Life would be so much easier if we all used MLA like they taught us in high school. But These citation styles really became popularized because there had been no standard for how people cited sources until about the post-World War II research boom, when a lot of people, or there just was a lot more research generated. And so scientists realized, okay, we got to have like some common ways to cite our sources. But different sort of scholarly communities came up with different conventions for how they thought would be best to cite their sources. So now today we have all these different scientific communities that sort of branched off into different ways of citing sources, and also like different graduate programs and undergraduate programs have their own preferences for which style you should use, and even different journal editors will often have their own preferences of which style is best, or even they'll have their own kind of hybrid style that you have to use. So there's all these reasons why there's been a need for citation, but that they've kind of branched off into different styles. So we're going to go through today what those styles are and what the differences and what the commonalities are. So that hopefully, if you have to, I should switch back here. So hopefully, if you have to switch from one citation style to another, it doesn't feel like an insurmountable task. All right. So the first thing to establish about that with the elements of a citation is that everything that's in your works cited or your references should be referenced somewhere in your essay, right, or in the body of your work. So basically, you've got these two pieces. You've always got one, some kind of in-text citation. It might be in parentheses. That's a parenthetical or in-text citation, or it might be a footnote, which would just be a little number after your writing that then refers to a number either down at the end of the page, at the bottom of the page, or at the end of the chapter. So in this case, this is MLA style. So they've put the name of the author of the source in parentheses. And then when you see that, you know, oh, I just have to go to their works cited page, look for Pike in alphabetical order, and then I can find the full information about the source that they used. So pretty much no matter what style you use, type of style you use, you're going to have some kind of in-text, just sort of abbreviation or number that points you to a full citation later. Okay, so what about the elements of a citation? Here are a couple sort of different styles. We've got the sort of template from the MLA style handbook for citing a source over on our right. And kind of in the middle below here, we've got a sample APA citation. So even though different citation styles order the different elements in sort of different positions or put them in a different order, and they might have different punctuation in between those elements, and they might italicize different things, and they might capitalize different things. Even though they do all that, pretty much you're going to have the same elements. They're just going to be smooshed around in different ways, no matter whether you're using MLA, APA, Chicago, what have you. They're pretty aligned on what are the things that are important to have in a citation. So you see the first thing is an author. If there is an author listed, you're going to want to make sure that's present. And I'm pretty sure all the citation styles start with the author. So MLA also starts with the author. Then you've got your publication date. So APA prioritizes the publication date. It's really important to them how recent a study is, so they put it second. You'll also notice, I skipped over this, in APA style, the author's first name and middle name is abbreviated. So you'll just see JM here instead of the full name. In MLA style, it's last name, comma, first name, and or as long as you are or as long as your name is sort of your family name or your given name and then your family name, they swap it around for the works cited. But so no matter how the author's listed, that comes first. Then in APA, we've got the publication date. However, MLA then wants to know the title and they throw the date later. Then in the title of, then we've got the title of the article. That's the sort of title of the source. You've got an MLA style. And then the journal it came in. So this citation is for a scholarly journal article. And in MLA style, they say so that the container, the thing that the smallest piece was in. So in this case, if it's a journal article, that would be the title of your source, but then it would fit into this container that's the journal. So Journal of Insect Biology would come next for them as well. Then we've got the volume and issue number. And so some people are often like, what are these numbers that's after this, especially in APA that just sort of one's in italics and the other one's in parentheses. This just means just like you might watch a TV episode and you've got a season, right? Like, whatever. I don't even know if there's multiple seasons of this Love Island, season 3, episode 2, right? So the volume is kind of like your season, where there'll be multiple issues or episodes within that volume. And it basically just means usually it's like a year. So maybe in 2025 they had 4 different issues, and so that's volume. If they started counting 83 years earlier, this would be volume 83, issue number 3. Basically, you don't need to worry about that too much. You just need to know if you're going to find it, which volume and issue to go looking in. Then you've got, and it's pretty much the same in MLA style. They just specifically now say volume 83, number 3. So they spell it out for you. And then there's the page numbers that it appeared in a journal. If you are using a kind of source that doesn't use page numbers, you don't have to worry about that. And then there's usually a URL or a DOI, which is a digital object identifier. It's, if you know about ISBNs in books, it's kind of the same thing. A DOI is just a unique ID that's given to an article so that you can find it. And with MLA, kind of the same thing, right? So they've got, if there is a sort of version, like this is the second edition of a book, you'd put that there. And then you've got your sort of like volume number. If it's a book, you might list the publisher and the publication date, and then the location is just that URL or DOI. Okay, so that was real uh, specific about a couple different styles. Then to throw Chicago into the mix, and I'll go into a little bit later about how Chicago's even more complicated than the others. But here's an example of like the same citation in 3 different styles. And I also meant to mention, if you catch a citation that I have done wrong in here, then let me know and you can win a prize. I also will be doing a drawing for a little Trader Joe's tote at the end of this for anyone who attended. And I'll reach out to you afterwards. So anyway, you catch any mistakes in my citations, you can get one too. All right, so we've got MLA, APA, Chicago style now. You'll see, again, they all start with the author, except APA, again, abbreviates the author's names. And because your works cited or references list is going to be in alphabetical order by the first word, you'll want to, they all make sure that it's last name, comma, or family name, comma, first or given name, so that just with the first one, this is something that in MLA in Chicago, or in APA, they do last name, first initials for all of them. But that's mostly to make sure that the last name ends up sort of what's alphabetized down the left-hand side of your works cited page. All right, so we've got authors in pink, right? They all start with that. Then we've got, for MLA, the title in orange, and that's a title here, titles here, titles here. You'll remember APA puts the date up ahead, so the year of publication for this article comes a little earlier than the others, but you've got the same thing in all 3. Then you've got the journal name in all 3. You've got the volume and issue number in all 3, but formatted a little differently, just for fun. And then you've got page numbers and the DOI. So you'll see it's all the same elements. They're just kind of put in a different order, a different formatting, and different punctuation between each of the elements. One wonky thing about APA to note is that you'll notice that title of the article, they only capitalize proper nouns. So, like Supreme Court, you have to capitalize. American, you always capitalize. But all the other words, except for the first words at the beginning and the first words of the title and the first words after the colon, are capitalized. But all the others are lowercase, and that is something that's unique to APA. And they don't put quotes around their journal article titles either. Whereas you'll see MLA have quotes and they capitalize all the main words. Um, so that's something to note as well, and it can be a good hint as to whether, like what kind of citation you're looking at. The other thing it can be a hint about is if you are using a citation generator, often they will mess this up. If you do an APA citation, they might capitalize all the words, and if you do an MLA citation, they might lowercase them all by accident. So that's a good thing to look out for if you are using EasyBib or one of the citation generators that I'll show you in a bit. So this is an example of a journal article. Again, when you're doing a research project for college or a master's or doctoral program, a lot of the sources you're going to be using are scholarly journal articles. So I want to make sure to cite with that or start with that. I've just given you examples of 3 different ways to cite those sources, right? But there are so many more. There's like hundreds of different styles. If you ever have a question about one of these other kinds of styles your professor has assigned you, or that you're submitting to a journal and they ask for a different kind of style, feel free to come and chat with us, and we're happy to point you to resources for all the different kinds of styles you may need to cite in. But here at St. Mary's, especially with in all the populations, I tend to find that MLA, APA, Chicago are the 3 main ones we get asked about. All right, little pop quiz. What style is this article in? Do you think it's MLA, APA, or Chicago? And if you have access to the chat right now, feel free to put your guess in there. MLA style, APA style, or Chicago style? All right. We've got a guess for MLA or Chicago. Chicago. All right, good guesses. Um, and I think, yeah, you all went for MLA or Chicago, right? Because it's got the full first name or the full given name of the author. And yeah, seeing some initials there is a good hint that it's APA. So we know it's not APA. It is, in fact, MLA. It's very, very close to Chicago. One of the ways that you know it's MLA is that it's like volume and number are both spelled out here, sort of, or abbreviated. Um, and there's also just some slight differences with the punctuation. The other hint is that this is the PMLA journal, which is one of the publication of the Modern Language Association, which is what makes MLA style. So that was a little giveaway there. All right. So, what if you are citing different kinds of things, not a scholarly journal? Once again, you've got, let me see how I'm doing on time. Cool. You've got MLA style here. Again, like very similar elements, just in a different order. You've got APA style and Chicago style. Another note here, this was an example of like, okay, what if you've got 2 publication dates? And some of these guides might advise you don't really need to list that, but if it's important to your readers for you to point out that, hey, Frankenstein wasn't written in 2018, right? This is like the 200th anniversary edition. You can throw in additional things. The nice thing about these styles is they can be pretty flexible and they really let you highlight different aspects of your citation that you want to. So if you are citing a movie, you can just, include the director, the title of the movie, and the distributor and the year. But if the reason you included that movie was because you're talking about particular actors in there or the cinematography, you might want to add to your citation the name of the cinematographer or the names of the actors. So you don't have to worry too much about exactly how to do any particular kind of citation. They'll often let you add or remove elements depending on if they're appropriate for the kinds of things you want to highlight to your reader. Um, Other things, often we're citing a web page and something we got off the web. So again, pretty similar, just slightly different order for things. Um, in APA, you put the year first and then the month. In MLA, you put the month first and then the year. Chicago wants you to say when the page was last updated instead of just providing a year. But it's all pretty much the things you want are who wrote this web page, what's the title of the web page, what kind of site is it on, and what's the URL, right? And if you have any questions, again, feel free to put them in the chat along the way. Okay, I mentioned that Chicago style is the most complicated, and here's why. There's actually two different ways to do Chicago style. One is their notes and bibliography format, and the other option is the author date format. And so I just really wanted to quickly go through what's the difference so that you know if your professor says use Chicago style, that you need to ask which one they want, notes and bibliography or author date. And here's the differences. Chicago Notes and Bibliography uses footnotes, right? So maybe you can see these little tiny numbers after this writer's sentences. There's a little 7 here, a little 8 here, and those then refer to, down at the bottom of the page, little footnotes. That say where the source is from. So you don't have to go all the way to the references page to figure out, wait, what is this source? Instead, it puts a little shortcut to them down at the bottom. But because it's not in alphabetical order. These are in order of where they appear in the text. You'll see it's not last name, comma, first name, or given name, or family name, comma, given name. It is instead given name, family name. So then this is the complicated part about Chicago too, is that if you use notes like footnotes and bibliography style, you also often are going to be asked to do a bibliography that then has the same sources but written slightly differently. Um, and so it's basically like you have to prepare two references lists. And whenever I work with students and we get this part down, I'm like, okay, and now it's time to do the whole bibliography. It seems like sometimes they're close to crying. But again, same elements, just in a different order. I'm not laughing about students crying. I'm laughing about Chicago being ridiculous. All right. Author date style, though, of Chicago is they do allow that you can do it sort of more like APA, I guess, where you have the author's name and the year and the page number in parentheses, and then that corresponds to bibliography at the end. So again, Chicago has two different types, so just make sure you know which one you want to do. Sometimes your professor will say either one's fine, and then you can just choose which ones you like better. Okay, so then there's other kinds of things you might end up needing to cite these days too, right? Like a podcast. So here's different examples from MLA, APA, and Chicago. And I think the most important thing to note here is that, oh, and I see a question in the chat. I'll get to that in a sec. That's a great question. The important thing here to note is that I was able to find these examples from the official MLA style guide, from the official APA handbook, from the official Chicago style guide. And so all you need to do if you're like, how do I cite a podcast in MLA, is either Google it or use the library to go to the official MLA handbook and see what they say about that. There are always examples for whatever kind of thing you need to cite, and then you just kind of follow that format by putting your title in the place of where the title is. You're also welcome to chat with a librarian, and we can help you sort of help you find a template and then apply that to your particular source. But you'll see here for something like a podcast, you still have the creator, the hosts. You've still got a date and a title of the episode. In some cases, they may want you to call out that it's actually a podcast. And then it'll say, which podcast is this from, who produces it, and what's where can someone find it, right? Okay. And just to pause real quick, someone asked, why do teachers prefer MLA instead of the other format styles? That is a great question. Oh, I meant to have a slide on this. Actually, it completely depends by discipline. So often, I don't know why, maybe it's because English teachers are the ones in high school who tended to introduce you to citation because you're often writing essays and maybe doing some research and citing sources in an essay for an English class. So MLA is often used in English and some of the other humanities. Um, and so that's often why that's the one we use first, is that often we're introduced to citing sources in an English class in high school. So that is, I think, why a lot of your teachers in the past may have preferred MLA. But here at St. Mary's, I would say that if you are in some humanities or social sciences classes, uh, like history or art history or potentially politics or things like that, you'll often be asked to use Chicago style. And then if you are in a psychology class or a communication class or a business class, you'll often be asked to use APA style. That is from the American Psychological Association, so it's often used by other disciplines in the social sciences. So then someone else asked, can a writer decide the type of citation style they want to use? And it just depends, yeah, what it's for. So if you are submitting to a journal for publication, like you want to turn your dissertation into a journal article, or even a book, often the publisher will say, this is the citation style we use, and you have to change all your citations to match the style that we want when you submit it to us for publication. So, and in a class, it's often, a professor might be used to a particular citation style, or maybe it's your major and they want you to get used to communicating in the way that historians or anthropologists or accountants communicate. And so they might want you to use a particular style. I realize we are coming up on 8 o'clock. So, if you're just doing your own thing, yeah, feel free to use like your own blog or something like that. Use whatever style you want. Here's some more examples, and you have you have these slides linked in the chat as well. So PDF report on our website, there's examples for that. TikTok video, there's examples for that. Again, just make sure you're crediting the creator, the title of the thing, if there is one, what platform it's on, and how you got to it, right? And how recent it is. And a lot of students here at St. Mary's come to us about citing their seminar readers because it can be a little tricky to cite a piece of a thing that's in an anthology, but we have a guide all about this. So, and I will put that again in the chat. So anytime you need to cite any kind of source, right? You can just apply the basic format you've already learned. Just for example, with a YouTube video, the creator is the author would go. You could also Google the kind of thing you're trying to cite, like a government report in APA style, and usually you'll come up with other libraries that have created or writing centers that have created examples for you. We have citation guide cheat sheets that I'll put again in the chat. And they're also available in print in the library, color coded. Oh, it's not going to let me do this. Yeah, color coded for the different styles. And we also have the official style handbooks from the library. So if you want to be an overachiever and get the entire, fat Chicago manual of style and flip through it with us, happy to do that. And you can ask a librarian. So we are here in the power plant, available in person for you to drop in until 7 p.m. on weekdays. We're also here on Saturdays and Sundays at different hours. And you're also welcome to send us a chat or an email, and we can answer remotely that way. The other thing to note is that if you are in a library database like library search, there's usually a citation button. And so that can get you started with a citation, but it's always important to double check it. So if I click citation here, it gives me options for MLA, APA, Chicago, but sometimes it gets some stuff wrong. So just make sure, like, do you really need London here in brackets? Make sure there's an author, a title, and all of that. I always say beware Google Scholar's cite button. So a lot of people like to use Google Scholar to find research, and it's really nice that they have this little handy cite button here. But for some reason, they just never learned how to do MLA. I don't know why there's parentheses and a colon here. That's not MLA style, and it also doesn't tell you like what platform it's on or anything like that. So yeah, don't use Google Scholar's cite button if you can help it. There's a lot of other good tools out there. I also feel like a lot of people use ChatGPT or Claude to help you format your citations. I would say they're getting better at this, but I've seen them make up parts of the citation or apply the style incorrectly. They also, however good their output is, depends on how good your input is. So you need to tell them all the details about the thing you're trying to cite and, and what kind of style you want and all of that for it to give you a good output. But there's some tools I'd recommend instead. Um, the citation tool in Google Docs, I've only experimented with it a little bit, but it seems to be pretty good. It won't know like you have to provide the correct ISBN, for example, so it's citing the right edition of a book. But it sort of really walks you through the different parts of it. And this is a new feature in Google Docs, new-ish, I believe. And so that can be something that you turn to, and it'll help you do the in-text citations, like in parentheses, as well as formatting the bibliography at the end. But really, the like expert level citation tool that a lot of us librarians love, and students that are working on capstones or master's theses or dissertations, really love Zotero because it is free, it is open source, and it can help you save all your sources too. So you can create project folders and just sort of pin your sources from around the web as you're doing your research, just like you would click on the Pinterest button. And then you also have the Zotero sort of plugin that ends up in Google Docs or Microsoft Word so that you can add citations from your library directly in there. And you can also switch citation style. So if you submit to one journal and they require APA style, and then you're adapting it for another journal and they require Harvard style, you basically can do that with a click. So that's very helpful. And I'll put that link in the chat again. Oh yeah, any thoughts on Mendeley? I think that I used to think that Mendeley was good. I think it has some different strengths. I've found over time that I think Zotero is better when I like drag in PDFs from my desktop or whatever. It pulls out the metadata more accurately than Mendeley does in a lot of circumstances. And also Mendeley is owned by Elsevier, and Elsevier is not a very ethical scholarly publishing company, a lot of librarians' views. And so we like the open source software that is Zotero. But they basically do a lot of things similarly. And some of the things that I used to think Mendeley was better at, Zotero caught up and does it now too. So Zotero has become my citation tool of choice. But if you have an app that works for you, great, use it. All right. So, my other just final note, and I'm sorry we went over, but as you're sort of slogging through the terribleness of citing and maybe thinking about, I'm just going to have ChatGPT create my whole citation list for me, the benefit of doing it yourself is that it helps you recognize the essential qualities of each of your sources. It really forces you to figure out who wrote this, how recent is it, what kind of publication published it, what editors or translators or directors played a role in its creation, how did I get access to it, and how might others access it. And then also, just anytime you're looking through your sources, it's a good opportunity to see whose voices are included in my sources and whose are not. Am I representing different worldviews, different genders, different ethnicities? None of this you can really always, see from a name, but sometimes just getting really hands-on with your sources can help you think more critically about what sources you include.